Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hey everyone, Sue here from 1A Auto, and today we have a 2010 Nissan Murano in the shop, and we're going to be doing rear shocks. If you need those parts or any other parts for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. I'm going to take the wheel off. I've got a 21mm socket, vehicle supported, just a lightweight on the tire. I've got a wheel lock key. I'm going to line it up. Loosen up the lug nuts. Now I'm going to lift the car up and I'll take the rest of the lug nuts off. You can use a jack and jack stand at home. Now the vehicle's up in the air, I can take the 5 lug nuts off. Now we can take the tire off. Put a jack stand or a floor jack directly underneath the rear coil spring, and you have to raise the suspension up before you remove the rear shock. You want this arm to be parallel. Okay. 18mm socket for the lower mounting bolt. I'm going to remove that. Now threads on this are pretty rusted, so I've already sprayed it a couple of times. I'm going to keep spraying it. Hopefully make it a little bit easier for me. Look at that. 13mm socket. There's 2 mounting nuts up here, and we're just going to break them free. I sprayed those quite a lot because I don't want them to break. I can't even imagine if these broke off. The studs come out through the body. Put the socket up there. See if I can center it. Wow. Definitely want to examine them and make sure that they're not stripped or so rusted that they won't catch. Wow. Now we can pull the shock down. It looks like we're going to have to. I didn't want to. Pull the suspension down. At this point, I want to examine the bolt, make sure that there is no rust will eat the steel, cut out and eat. That all the threads are still good. We're just going to clean that up before we reinstall that. Now we have to take the top of the shock mount off of the shock. And this holding nut in the center of the shaft is 18mm. And then we have a cutout that is like an 8mm wrench will fit, but because it's on there pretty tight, to break it free on the first break free, I'm going to use a vise. So I came up with this little idea that I would put that in there and hold that from just for the initial break free. Nice. Now with that like that, let's see how far it will let us go. I'm going to open up my vise and hold the shock. And I can get my 8mm wrench. Probably one of the only things that's not out in the element. That's why it's working in our favor. See if I can, yeah, because it's neoprene block threads on this, so you got to try to right to the last minute. See if you can get the threads past that. Well, let's see if I can find where the shaft is. Hold that with my fingers. And we'll remove the mount. Now it's basically just a way they mount it. There's no bearing in there. There's nothing like that. It's just got the damper bushing in the mount because of the way they mount it on the outside. Here we have our brand new rear shock for our 2010 Murano from 1A Auto. And here we have the factory, the OE design. Same length. Ours comes with a new nut. Same stop shaft for the actual top mount. Down below, it's got the same diameter width of a bushing. Same cylinder size. If you need this part or any other part for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. So the first thing we do before we ever install shocks or struts, if they're not a complete assembly, is we like to charge, what they call charge or starting the shock. So I'm going to push this down a minimal of 3 times and get the oils and gases to activate. If you've never done this and you install a shock maybe and you realize there's a banging noise after, you put it in, don't think it's defective, it's basically that you didn't charge up the actual gases and oils. All right. Now I'm ready to reinstall the old mount. We've already looked at it, it's in good shape. There's no holes. The boot inside is not torn. We'll just place that right over. The center of the shaft will come out. I'm just gonna start the nut. I'm going to wrap a towel around this because I don't want to put my new shock tightly into a vise. So it's the same size, 18mm wrench, 8mm wrench on the top to hold the center shaft. And let's just tighten it up. We'll bottom it out. There we go, bottomed out. So I'm going to do the same way I did to loosen it. So now I'm holding that center shaft tight. Torque spec is 41 foot-pounds. Obviously I cannot put a socket on here with a torque wrench and hold that at the same time. So I'm just going to give it my best judgment. That's pretty good right there. I can release it. Now I'm going to set the shock right through. Line it up. I'm going to attach the top first. There we go. I'm going to start the nuts by hand. I'm not going to bring these all the way up, but I do want them threaded quite a bit because then I'm going to bring the suspension up. And if I have difficulty, I can put the bottom bolt in, and I can always, by tightening those nuts and the studs, I can bring the shock up to its seat. 13mm socket, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm just gonna really make sure they're securely on there. And the stud is poking through a little bit. Now I'm gonna crank up that suspension. Oh, so I can pull the shock down. Get the actual bolt in. Perfect. Now I'm gonna tighten that up. Okay, now we're gonna torque that. Torque specs for this is 81 foot-pounds. I'm going to continue to tighten this up. I'm going to torque that down to specs. The torque specs is 17 foot-pounds. Now we can lower down the jack stand, and all the weight will go back on the suspension. Now we can put the tire back on. Make sure you put the rim flush against the hub. I'm going to snug this lug nut flush so I can let go of the tire. 2010 Murano, the wheel torque is 80 foot-pounds. So I'm going to start in a star pattern, 21 millimeter socket. I'm going to go right to the bottom one, torque it, and do star pattern all the way around. I'm going to do it twice because I like to make sure. And we're ready to go.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.